when we can just make lots of money. And John, welcome. Now, so why real estate is great. And by the way, there's a lot of data on these slides. And so at the end, or at any time, actually, if you think that you want the slides, want to get a copy of the slides, just put your email in the chat, and I'll send a PDF of the slides out afterwards. So, okay. So now I have a question for you that is going to help define our experience today. Who do you think makes the laws? Is it the rich people or the poor people? Anyone, just shout it out. There's no wrong answers there. I want to hear what you have to say.
Rich people.
The lawyers. Whether rich or poor, the lawyers.
The lawyers are rich.
Now, actually, that's not necessarily true. You have some very broke lawyers.
Oh, no.
Well, I don't think they're the ones making the rules.
the politicians.
Okay, so is there anybody who doesn't think that, who thinks that it's poor people who make the rules? Okay, so we're gonna go on the assumption that we have a consensus that it's the rich people. So just hold that thought. Okay, so first I'm gonna ask you to name a company whose stocks you think are a great investment. Some company that you think who, if you bought those stocks, that they're definitely gonna grow in the long term.
Apple.
Okay. All right, let's use Apple. So if I want to buy $200,000 worth of Apple stock, how much money do I need?
$200,000.
That's right. It's not like a trick question. You're right. But if I want to buy $200,000 worth of real estate, how much money do I need?
20%.
That's actually not necessarily true, because of the way we're investing, if there's an owner occupant piece, then you can actually get away with as little as 3%, which is one of the reasons that real estate is great, because you can leverage. Now, if we hold our $200,000 worth of Apple stock for 30 years, how much money do we get off of our taxes every year for owning that?
None. Until we sell it.
And then you get to pay taxes.
And then we get to, exactly.
Right, exactly. But with real estate, you can actually deduct all of, if you have investment real estate, you can deduct a lot of the expenses that you pay for that investment real estate. You can deduct them off of the profit that you're making from that building. All right. So since we pretty much agreed that rich people make the laws, do you think that there are any rich people who own real estate?
All.
Only 90% apparently, Shelley. I don't know where that number came from, but so lots of rich people. So if you were a rich person, let's just say you were a rich lawmaker, and you own real estate, do you think you might make some laws that would benefit you? Probably, right? There's a pretty good chance. I certainly would be tempted, at least, if I were a rich lawmaker who owned real estate, I would at least be tempted to make a few laws that would benefit me.
Yes, and yes.
Yeah, exactly. So that's, in my opinion, what depreciation is. Someone passed a law that basically says, hey, you know, this building is not going to stand forever. It's eventually going to fall down and be worthless. So that means that every year I can deduct a portion of that building that's becoming more and more worthless. Now, how long do you think it would take? Like, for if you built a brand new building today, how long do you think it would take before the building is basically ready to be demolished and it's worthless?
Absent a natural disaster, 100 years. I mean, because we have 100-year-old houses, 200-year-old houses.
Exactly. But because rich lawmakers don't want to wait 200 years to depreciate their property, it's actually 27 and a half years for residential property. So they're figuring that in 27 and a half years, this beautiful building that you just bought for $200,000 is going to be worth nothing. Now that doesn't count the land, obviously, but so every year you take 127 and a half of the value off of that land. So let's say that you paid $275,000 for a piece of, was the value of the building on the real estate that you bought, every year you're going to take $10,000 off the profit that you're making on that building. So if you make 14,000 in rents, you take 10,000 away. Now you only have 4,000. Plus you're going to have other things of depreciation. So you see that you're paying a lot less tax on that building because of depreciation. Okay. So what are a couple of the ways that you can make money with real estate? I think some of you already started talking about them. Like Shania was saying, Airbnb.
Renting.
Yep. You can have, so residential rentals, commercial rentals, flips, landlords, you can be a landlord. And where can you buy real estate?
Where?
Yep.
Where there's land.
Yep.
Anywhere.
Pretty much anywhere in the world. And that's what we call diversity. Diversity is a wonderful part of real estate because no matter what you like, there's probably going to be a way that you can. That's why I say that it can work for, I think, almost everybody. Okay, so now we have our Apple stock. What do we get when we bought our Apple stock? What did we get?
Apple stock.
Well, we might have got like a piece of paper, right? If we were lucky. In the old days, we would have got a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Now I think we just get a line item on our right. But with real estate, what happened to tangible? Oh. Okay. Well, stability, I don't know where that came from. It's supposed to be tangibility. So with real estate, you can go there, you can touch it, you can taste it, you can live in it, you can paint it, you can, right? It's a real place. It's a real thing that you can do things with. And you are in control of what happens there. Well, that's the next thing, actually. That talks about one of the things that I love about real estate is that, so let's say you've got your Apple stock and it starts to go down. And you're like, oh, this is going down because they're spending all this money on the iPhone when they should be developing new products. So you get upset about your investment and you call up Apple and you're like, look, I've got $200,000 worth of your stock. And I want to tell you right now that I don't like what you're doing with it. You got to make some changes. How do you think that conversation is going to go?
No way.
Like, yeah, right.
No way.
Hello?
River.
Today, and all throughout the week sessions to know that everything that I desire is possible. So I'm just grateful for this experience. And
Who is that? Sorry. I couldn't tell who was talking there. Well, grateful to have you. Whoever you are. So yeah, if you own your real estate, you're pretty much in control unless you have like a big partner who's not going to let you do things. But like if you decide, well, right now it's a residential property, but I'm seeing a change on this street and I think it would make more sense to turn the ground floor into a restaurant or a commercial space, whatever, within the boundaries of the local laws and zoning, you have a lot more control over real estate than you would over another type of investment. Okay, now, now let's say that you use leverage, meaning now leverage is, remember the term at the beginning where we took out a loan to buy the real estate. If you use leverage, then you took, let's say $40,000 to buy your $200,000 property. And now you've got to pay back the other 160, right? So where is that money going to come from?
Okay, you said where's the other money to pay the loan back gonna come from?
Yep.
Rents if you're doing buy and hold, or if you're fixing it up and reselling it, then it would come from the proceeds of the sale of the property.
Exactly. So basically, if you do pay it back from rents, then it becomes like a forced retirement account because you're at the end of that, you're going to have paid off the $200,000 plus you're going to have whatever it's now worth. And none of that money came out of your pocket. It's all coming from, it shouldn't have come out of your pocket. It should all be coming from the tenants. Or like Lisa said, it could be coming from, you know, if you just flip it, if you just buy it, fix it and sell it, then it'll just come from whoever buys the property from you. But in either case, you're getting more money, and money is being added to your net worth, and it is not coming out of your pocket. So that's where the forced retirement account comes from. Okay, now I'm going to ask you to be honest with yourself and rate yourself, basically like say on a scale of 1 to 10, or you can just say large or small or whatever. Like for the first category, like money, if you have plenty of money sitting in the bank and you can basically go out and buy a house in the area that you're interested in with cash, then you can give yourself a 10 for money. And if you're just hoping that you don't get kicked out of your apartment because you can't pay the rent, then you can give yourself a 1. And if you're wherever you are in that trajectory, just, you'll see why we're doing this in a minute. So just kind of take a minute and say, okay, let's see where I am on that trajectory for money. And do the same thing for risk. If you feel like, hey, you know, I know you got to spend money to make money, and I'm going to let it roll, you know, I'm going to just put my money out there. And if I lose half of it, hey, that's okay, because I know that I'm going to have learned a lot. And if you feel like, oh my God, if I lose $10 on this transaction, I'm going to be really nervous and freaked out. So wherever you are on that scale for risk. And the same thing with knowledge. If you know a lot about real estate, if you happen to be a Lisa Jeffrey real estate investor, or if you happen to be somebody like Shelley who's had a lot of exposure to real estate investing, you can give yourself, you know, a 9 or a 10. And if you don't know the first thing about it, then a 1. And, you know, again, wherever you are on that trajectory. And time. So time is, there's 2 aspects of time. There's the time that you can personally invest in fixing up the property or managing the property or doing whatever else the property might need. And then there's the time between when you want to start investing and when you want to start seeing a positive cash flow coming out of that. All right. So now I'm just going to quickly run through the types of investments, and then we're going to go into more detail, just so you can see though that there are a lot of them, maybe more than you thought. Does anybody see any here that you don't know what they are, or you are surprised that there's so many?
I think I know what turnkey is. That just means where you have like a property and it's ready to go. You don't have to do any renovation.
Sorry, Shania.
Oh, sorry. I was saying the one that I don't, or I'm not sure about, is turnkey. But that means when a property is ready to go, you don't have to do any renovations. You just kind of have something that's ready to sell.
Yeah, that's the next one that we're going to talk about. And turnkey actually is cool because it's something that a lot of people are not really very familiar with. It's basically 100% hands-off investment. So in the way that I'm using turnkey, because obviously it could be exactly what you said, Shania, that it's completely ready to go and you just, you know, but there is a whole silo or a whole type of real estate investing, which is called turnkey. And basically what it consists of is that a company will come in, they'll buy a building that's in pretty rough shape. They gut it out. They put, you know, get it all fixed up really nice. They'll put a tenant in there, usually with like a 2-year lease if they can, because they want you to feel confident that it's going to be good. They manage it 100%. And basically they just send you a statement every month. It's a lot of times these are in places like, for example, I know there are a lot like in Tennessee, and I think Elisa, you have also some experience with these. They're usually in places where the real estate's not horribly expensive. Where are the ones that you have some in Baltimore, Lisa? Is that the area?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah, I have a group of friends that specialize in doing turnkey, and then just recently I saw a ad that they were doing for investors that have properties that are looking for tenants and would prefer subsidized tenants because they're keyed into some of the programs that are out there, and they've been working in the area for a while. They kind of have a pipeline of people that are, ready to go, and they'll screen them and get them, and either install them in properties that they are renovating, or help you acquire those tenants if you're a new landlord. That can kind of give you a little security. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Actually, Chris, I think this is what in Jacksonville, the house that I rented.
Yeah.
I believe that's what this is, a turnkey. Now that you say what it is, because a management team they're the ones that vetted me, and that I pay my rent to, and all of that up there.
Yep.
So, okay. All right. Now this makes sense.
Yeah, see, it's already coming together. So one thing about turnkey that's very attractive is you can use a self-directed IRA. So if you have retirement money that you have invested in something else and you're not really that happy with the return, you could use some of that money to buy a piece of real estate. The key is that if you do that, they are not going to let you manage it. So this kind of investing is perfect. They can't take the chance that you, as a new investor, I think even if you're an experienced investor, they won't take the chance that you might make a mistake with your retirement income, but they will, if it's a professional management company, they will let you do that. So you get tax advantages, you can leverage it, you can take out a loan just like you can with regular real estate, and you can use some retirement money if that's something that you have. And then I'm sorry, I forgot to point out, if you look at the bottom of all these slides as we go through the different ones, where you see at the bottom how I've rated them. So money, you don't need a ton of money. Some of these properties are 60, 70,000, 90,000. So you can see that a 20% of that is not really a huge amount of money when you think about some other types. There's not a lot of risk because you are working with a professional management company. And as long as you go ahead and vet them and make sure that they are legit, then you should be okay with that. You don't need much knowledge, and you need hardly any time at all. So the dashes are sort of neutral, and then the down arrow means you really isn't going to take any of your time. You basically just have to open your statement every month. That's about the size of your time investment. So that's, any questions on turnkey before we go to the next type? Okay. So wholesaling, if you look at this requires almost no money. Basically, you can usually get away with about $1,000, but the time is high, and the risk that you could lose that $1,000 if you don't have enough knowledge is kind of high. So wholesaling is basically you went somewhere, you started knocking on doors, you started sending postcards, you did something to attract people who want to sell their homes. Usually they're homes that need work, or that are just, they're on a big lot, but it's a small property, something that a developer would be interested in general, either to flip or to tear down and build something else. And you're basically going to get paid to be a matchmaker between the seller, who you've made a relationship with and who you've done the work to find, and a buyer who is an investor who doesn't have time to go knocking on doors. And you can make $10,000 on a transaction like that. You can make even more, because you're going to make the difference between what the seller is willing to sell for and what the buyer is willing to buy for. So this is a way that people who are very energetic but don't have very much money or any, a way for them to get started. And you would have to put the property under agreement with the seller. So that's where you need the $1,000, and you should get that back as soon as the property closes. So in some areas you can get away with $500 as an earnest money deposit. So that's a kind of a cool way. And I actually know several people who have got started in real estate doing wholesaling. And what you need more than anything is an attitude that you can help these people because they need to sell and they can't, you know, for whatever reason. Sometimes it's just overwhelming. Sometimes people are older. Sometimes they've got a lot of, you know, they might be hoarders, or they just might have a lot of old stuff in their house and they don't want to fix it up to put it on the market. And so they just think, oh, you know, I just can't deal with it. And then you come and you should go towards this with a spirit that you're going to help them, and you're going to help yourself and you're going to help the seller. So it could be, as long as everybody understands and you're honest with everybody, it could be a win all the way around. But you are going to want to take some time to learn what property is worth, how to value a property, so that you know when you go in and make an offer to that seller that it's actually going to be, you'll actually be able to find somebody who will buy it for that amount. Any questions about wholesaling? Okay. So if you have lots of money and you could do a little risk, you're okay with a little risk. You don't need to know anything, and it's not going to take a lot of your time, but you can do, you can invest with somebody else. So you can find a developer, or you can find just a person who does, you know, who has some rental property that they want to buy. You can find somebody like me who wants to build a tiny home village, and you can just give them your money. And if you think that you would want to do something like that yourself at some point, then you can ask to kind of tag along. You know, can you show me like how we're going to create the legal entity that's going to own this property? Can you show me how we're going to fix it up? And I want to be right with you. So you basically be investing with them and making some type of a profit, which you could either do as a what we call a hard money lender, where you're just loaning the money and you're going to get it back with interest, or you could do it as a partner. You could buy into this as a partnership. So that's one way. If you're big on money, okay with some risk, and don't have a ton of time, you can try investing with others. Any questions on this one? And that other could be a friend, right? So it could be somebody that you meet in this group, who one person's got the money, the other person's got the knowledge and the time. So buy and hold is, I think, what a lot of us think about when we think about real estate investing. It could be a commercial building, a residential building. You can live there too, which would include like house hacking. You can work there. So it could be, you know, you could buy an office space that you.
I'm sorry, Chris.
Yep.
Explain house hacking and BRRRR.
And BRRRR. Okay, sure. So house hacking is basically when you are taking, I'll give you an example. I house hacked 2 of my properties. So you're taking something, and without buying anything new, you're going to morph it into an income producing property. So I bought a single family house, and I basically got permission from the city to cut it in half and turn it into a 2-family. So now it's the same house, but it's been literally hacked as well as figuratively hacked into,
so that's what we call
structures.
So you subdivided the house.
Yep, exactly.
Okay.
And I would and they even call it house hacking when you rent one of your bedrooms, because you're basically, you're taking your existing situation and now you're finding a way to make money from it.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, that's even still considered a house hack.
BRRRR.
Yeah, and BRRRR is a strategy. In a true BRRRR, BRRRR stands for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. So in a true BRRRR, you buy a property with cash.
Mm-hmm.
You go in there, you fix it all up, and it shouldn't need too much. So you go in, you fix it up, you get a good tenant in there, and then you would go to the bank and say, hey, I want to cash out, basically. So if you do it right, you can potentially get all of your money back,
Mm-hmm.
or a good portion of your money back from the bank as a refi. And then you're going to take that and you're going to repeat and do this exact same thing with another property. So you can start out with your, Carol, you have a question?
So wait, can you repeat and say buy, renovate?
Rent. Yeah, so you buy something, you fix it up. So that's the renovate part. And then you're going to find a good tenant. So that's the rent part. then you refinance. And actually it's not truly a refinance because you didn't ever get financing, although you can do this with financing as well. It's cleaner if you buy it with cash, so you'd refinance at a higher rate because now the house has been fixed up and it's rented. So both of those things should make it worth more. And then when you get your money back out of it, you go and you repeat and you do the exact same thing someplace else. And Airbnb, basically, it's either if it's your property, your home, or you bought a home in a vacation spot, or both, and you are renting it. Airbnb specializes in short-term rentals. So, did someone else have a question on that?
Yes. So I've been seeing, at first I thought you couldn't do like an Airbnb, or you couldn't do any kind of thing like that without actually owning the property. But now I've been seeing that you can be a renter and you can still lease it out to people, or rent it out to people for Airbnb and stuff like that. You just have to have an agreement between you and the landlord, and you have to have like all of the documentation and stuff like that signed. So for me, it's just if you had any kind of like insight on that, because if I could just go down the street and get an apartment and give it out to Airbnb, I mean, I'm sure it's not that simple, but to me, and as far as I can invest right now, that would be something that I'd be interested in doing kind of like immediately.
Let me tell you something that's happening in the Airbnb world. People are not even renting. Okay. I have a friend who lives in Texas. She has a house that she rents. A person approached her because she was, because he knew that the house was up for rent. And he said, I want to manage I'm going to put this on Airbnb. I'm going to manage it. I'm going to guarantee you a certain amount of money every month. And then whatever's over and above that, we'll split. So he's getting, let's say that you say, I'm going to guarantee you, you're going to make at least $1,500 a month, but then you wound up making $2,500. So now you're going to split that extra $500, that extra $1,000, you each get $500. And you have not done anything except being the person who's managing the Airbnb piece. So that's absolutely, you do not need a cent to do that. All you need is to just be a little bit bold about approaching people who have properties up for sale and up for rent rather. And I'll give you an example. I have a property that I manage in downtown Boston. It's unfortunate, and you have to be very careful because this is a condo, and the condo building has a 3-month minimum. But it was vacant in the summer, and I thought, well, we'll just sneak around that. So we did that. So when it's rented full time, he gets $3,700 a month. In the summer, on Airbnb with short-term rentals, we were making over $5,500. So if I had just guaranteed him the $3,700 that he was going to make anyway, without signing a lease myself, right? And then we would just share the difference between $5,500 and $3,700. And what have I done? I've showed up and met people with the keys. I've made sure the cleaners could get in. Do you know what I mean? I've done such a small amount of work for a really nice amount of income. And you know what else I've even seen is around here, like up in the up near me, not around here because I don't even know what state I'm in. I think I'm still in Virginia, on my way home from Miami. In where I live, and I think there are probably other areas where it's like a vacation community. In New Hampshire, there are people who like to hike. They want to be outside. So there's a whole glamping thing. And they call it glamping because it's a little bit nicer than just a regular tent. They'll rent land, and again, I don't know if they're actually renting the land or if they're just getting permission to use it and sharing some of the profit with the owner. So I would have just a basic, an empty piece of land. They'll come in and they'll put up some tents and they'll put them on Airbnb, and then they get people to rent them for like $50, $60, $70 a night. there's no running water, there's no toilet, there's no, I mean, there's maybe an outhouse somewhere or something, but it's just a very minimal experience, but people love it because it's very rustic. It's, and there
Natural.
again, they don't own the land. They don't know, they just buy the tents. So hopefully that got you thinking a little bit of some ideas.
Yes, definitely.
So buy and hold has lots of tax advantages if you're the owner. You can deduct all kinds of stuff, your taxes, your insurance, your maintenance, and then there's all kinds of other things that your accountant can help you with, like you want to send your kid to school, so you give him or her a salary to mow the lawn, which just happens to be the same as their college tuition, and then they're paying less because they're in a tiny bracket, and you're getting that whole thing as a tax write-off. I mean, there's lots and lots of tax advantages. Okay. A flip. Has everybody seen Flip or Flop? Everybody know what a flip is? Basically, buy it, fix it, sell
I watched the shows.
it. So a flip is the idea behind a flip is you buy something, you fix it up, and you sell it. It should be a quick turnaround, especially now. And we're going to talk a little bit about market timing and market cycles later on. But basically, from the time you take possession until the time you're selling it, it should be less than 6 months. So when you're looking at what needs to be done, if you're just getting started, you're going to want something that maybe just needs some paint and some new appliances, right? Like an upgraded kitchen or something like that. 6 months from start to finish. There are lots of moving parts. So if you want to get everything done and get it staged and get it sold within 6 months, you have to be pretty good about getting contractors there when they say they're going to be there, or you're doing all the work yourself and you've got time to do that. The problem with a flip is that you're going to have short-term capital gains. So even though there are some tax advantages, there's also some hits that you aren't going to see if you do long-term investing. Anybody think they want to do flips? Okay, we won't spend too much time there then. So developing, this is not for, I wouldn't recommend this for your first project, but basically you're putting something there that wasn't there before, or you're making something much more than what used to be there. So you're like buying bare land, or you're buying a building that's completely like a big factory building or whatever. And I wouldn't recommend that for starting. Because you can see at the bottom, lots of risk, lots of knowledge, lots of time. And the money's neutral because you can usually get investors to do this stuff with you. Okay, so why isn't everyone a real estate investor? Anybody want to take a guess?
They're intimidated by the concept. Maybe they think it's a lot harder than it is.
Okay, so fear. Any other guesses?
Thinking you need a significant amount of money for the down payment, That's because honestly, that's what I've always thought. I'm like, you need more than you would if you were buying a homestead property.
Mm-hmm. You do need a higher down payment than if you're buying something for yourself. And Carol said risk. So here we go. Knowledge, money, and risk. Oh, fear.
Yeah, you either need or money or time or your effort to learn and do everything.
Yep, exactly. So you basically have hit all three of them right on the head. But I hope that you're sort of thinking, is anyone's wheels turning here?
Here we go. There we go. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Hi, Lisa.
I'm muttering to myself, right? That's terrible. You guys are like, she's lost her mind over there. Well, I will say that, I think I said at the beginning that I had not done my own investment property yet. And so my daughter and I can put my screen on for a second. There I am.
Hi, there you are.
Hey, all right. Hey, everybody. So now I got to go in the grocery store, but just it's just that kind of day, Christy. We made our decision. I think, it starts with making the decision, about what you want. And then as you make the decision, then you find ways for how you can do it, and having been a single parent, it's like, that's really kind of been the way I've operated, a lot through life. It's like, okay, you got to get your kid this, or, you got to get them to the game, or, how are we going to get this uniform, or, whatever it is. And so once but you don't have an option, right? You got to get it. So it's like, okay, so now that I got to get it, how am I going to get it? What's available for me to get it? And so we made our decision that we want a triplex. We want to rent out 2 units and we want to live in one. Excellent. Even if we have to share a room, which we've done before, it's like we want to do that. And so we've made the decision that we're going to do that. Now, what we've been doing is pooling our knowledge and looking at how we want to do that. But even more so has been positioning ourselves in our other areas of our life that will make it more conducive for us to then take whatever risk level that we need to take, that we agree on, to be able to do that. And so another great real estate teacher that I know with Keller Williams, Emery Peace, he does a teaching, and one of the things is, when you look at the iceberg, what's on top of the water is usually the smallest part of the iceberg, and what's below is the larger piece. And so that larger piece is your decision and your determination. And then that equals to what you see, that movement that you see on top of the water. So the greater part of the equation is a lot of what we're telling ourselves, what we're thinking, what we believe, the knowledge that we've acquired. And when it reaches that critical mass of where everything's kind of in alignment because we've made that decision, then we're able to move forward. And we have a lot more resilience than what we think, to receiving knowledge, to dealing with the challenges, to, really exercising our critical thinking. I know that's kind of where I am, for myself personally, and taking, the things that I've, experienced and shared, and in some cases taught others, and applying it to myself. Okay, that's enough. This is the Christy Show. I apologize for the long-windedness.
No. But no, Lisa, you brought up a really good point. Why aren't we all rich, right? And this is the question I asked myself on the podcast. Why aren't we all already rich? It's mindset, right? Until we're ready, until we feel like, okay, like you say, you already know what you have to do, right? I'm not teaching you anything right now. You could teach me. You could teach this class, but we have to get our mindsets beyond the fear. And so I'm asking, my goal for you, my wish for you is that instead of being afraid of real estate investing, be afraid of spending your later years living on the street eating cat food. Okay. Be afraid of being a Walmart greeter. That's what I want you to be afraid of. Be afraid of being like a 70-year-old Walmart greeter who has to get up every morning and put your little Walmart uniform on because you can't afford to take fantastic vacations and live a beautiful life. If you want to be afraid of something, be afraid of that. Okay.
Can I check your bag? Yeah, can you take that water? Gosh, my nightmare.
Yep, that's it. One of the people that I had interviewed for my podcast, the podcast, if you're not familiar with it, since I did talk about it, I'll just let you know it's called Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life. And Lisa was on my podcast talking about some of her initiatives, but I had interviewed somebody for that. And he actually said that what got him into real estate investing is that he started to do the math on his retirement plan. And at first he was like, he and his wife are like, they're putting money away in their 401ks. They're making like, 6.25%, right? And they're feeling pretty good. They're like, hey, this is great. And they were all on track. And they were like, okay, we're going to end up, when we retire, we're going to have $4,500 a month. That's going to be great. That's when they retire in 2040. they're going to have $4,500 a month. And they were like, yeah, that's great. But then they started to look at it and like, oh my God, yeah, first of all, I don't know where he's going with $4,500 a month, right? That's not really living high on the hog, but they were like, they figured, oh, our house will be paid off, right? We'll still be really comfortable. But then he started to figure out that in 2040, like how much inflation are we going to have in that amount of time? And actually this was like in 2010 or even earlier when he's doing this. So he realized that with inflation and even just thinking about what they might want to start doing in their, with their new life when they're retired, he realized he'd need closer to $10,000 a month. And he's like, well, crap, where am I going to get that? So his fear of not being able to afford to retire is what got him into real estate investing. And that's what I'd like for you. Fear a crappy retirement, right? Fear that and and forget about being afraid of real estate. Okay. Deal?
Yes. Yes. I'm on board.
Thank you.
One thing I did want to add, and I just thought about it while you were talking. Even, when you're looking at being debt free, and I say that for those of us that still have student loans, okay? Because I went back to school as an adult, like in my late 40s, and I was so excited. It's like, I'm finally going to get that degree. And it's like, oh yeah, we got programs, can take care of your loans. And now I probably would have advised my own daughter differently, but I was like all excited because I'm going back to school, right? I saw those loans, and you get excited because they say, oh well, you don't have to pay it all right now. We can do a deferment, and they're capitalizing your interest. You may not know what that means, but that means that the interest that you owe now becomes a hard figure that gets added to your loan, and now they calculate new interest on the interest and the amount of the loan, and it just goes on forever.
Yeah.
But another thing that really pushed me into saying, okay, I need to apply what I know to myself. I have a colleague, and her client, young man, bought a property, lived in it, okay? Then he sold it to get another property as his primary residence. But he took part of the money and he used it to pay off his student loans. He lived in it, he fixed it up, he paid off his loans. So it's like, it's not even just retirement. I need that because, I've been self-employed since 2000, so I don't have a 401, none of the other alphabet letters that go after that. My self-directed is me getting up in the morning and getting coffee. Okay, that's about as self-directed as I get. Okay, well maybe I'll have a bun with the coffee. Okay, so I really, I just turned 58, so I really have to be now strategically and aggressively planning for what I want to see, in my older age, but also for like my daughter who has some student loans. I have student loans. Looking at how can I wipe that out quickly rather than later. So those things that you want to see happen or want to get rid of, that's another way that I was looking at using real estate to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, student loans, my personal opinion, they should be, it's like a loan sharking operation, but that's just my opinion. Okay. Do you want to talk about this next slide? This is, should you use cash or should you use leverage when you're purchasing a property? And basically, if everybody is going to use a loan, if everybody's going to use leverage, then we don't need to go down this road and talk about this one.
Talk about the pros and cons of each one, please.
Okay. So let's say, so that's the question. If you have lots of cash, should you use cash or should you leverage your thing? And that really depends on many things, but risk tolerance and the market. Okay, so we're going to take two people. I guess we'll use imaginary people. No, let me think. I'm looking at people's names because it's nice if you can use people who are here. Okay, so we're going to have Lisa Loan and Johnny Cash. All right. So.
Okay.
All right. So they both have $100,000. And Lisa loan, she's all about leverage. She wants to get a loan for everything. So she says, I've got this $100,000. I'm going to buy $500,000 properties and put 20% down on each one.
Okay.
But Johnny Cash, he's very risk averse. He's like, no, I've got $100,000. I'm going to buy $100,000 property. So he buys $100,000 property. And so now it's time to collect the rents. Lisa Loan goes and gets all 5 of her rents. They're each paying, let's say they're each paying, after she pays the mortgage on each of them, let's say she's making about $500. So she makes every month $2,500. And Johnny Cash, he's just has a small amount of expenses. So he's making, let's say he makes the whole $1,000 every month. So Lisa Loan's making 2,500, Johnny Cash is making 1,000. So which do you think is better, cash or leverage?
Leverage.
But, right, seems like a no-brainer. But what happens when the market starts to go down? Oh, see, right now when the market's going up, it's great because every time a piece of property gains 1% or 10%, then obviously Lisa's making 5 times more money than Johnny Cash is making. So, but when the market's going down, and Lisa's got 20% on each property, John's got 100% on his property. So if the market goes down 10%, Lisa just lost half her money. She just lost $50,000 just like that because the market went down, and John lost 10,000. It's a bummer for him, but it's not the same kind of bummer that it is for her. And basically, a lot of times the market goes down more than 10% in a correction. You might see, I've seen places in Worcester, which is an hour outside of Boston, some of the prices went down 60% in 2008. Wow. So if you lose 60%, that's what they call being underwater. I mean, John lost money and it's a bummer for him, but he has no loan. He doesn't owe anybody anything. He can just sit on that property and wait for the correction to come because it's bound to come. But Lisa, she's got 5 pieces of property that are now worth, she's now lost basically at a 20% correction. She's lost all her cash, and she now owes the bank exactly what the properties are worth. Now somebody stops paying, right? If it's no problem, if everybody's paying their rent and everything's great, because you can just wait. You can just wait for the correction. But if you got 5 loans, and then that's when you start like, oh crap, now what am I going to do? I got somebody just moved out. I don't have the money, blah, blah, blah. You want to know where you are in the market when you make your decision about cash versus leverage. And I can tell you, and Lisa, you can tell me if you agree with me, I think we are either at the top or heading down. And so it's a good time for cash or just leverage less, or just make sure that maybe you live in a piece of it. Maybe you just do something so that you're not going to be underwater.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing from investors that are holding property, and especially those that are mortgages, because as a realtor, I also I have a section of my business that is focused on rentals. So I work with tenants, and in some cases I work with landlords. So the landlords that I call on behalf of my tenants, the big fear is, a lot of our states are under states of emergency, and because of the pandemic, it wouldn't behoove anybody to increase the number of unhoused people right now, in terms of spreading COVID. So, they're saying, okay, there's no evictions. So you got landlords, because there's not, in a lot of cases, in most cases, not a commensurate pot of landlord relief.
Right.
And there's not enough tenant aid for rent that's going on.
Right.
So now you have,
Lisa, there's also a moratorium on foreclosures.
Yes, exactly.
So we don't really know what the real picture is.
Not at all. And so people, the tenant qualifications are tightening up, and people are concerned about, getting a tenant property. I have a client now that had a tenant that looked like they were going to be a good tenant. That tenant's had COVID. Now they're coming back to work, but now they're trying to get their money and their things, back together to be able to, to move forward. So I think you're going to see that if you're doing a buy and hold, but the sales market has been really growing in our area. People are still buying, people are still purchasing. So if you were doing maybe a fix and flip, you might have a better chance of turning that property, depending on where it is and what's going on in your market.
Yeah, that gets into the whole location question. But hopefully, is there any other questions about cash versus leverage? Is that kind of clear of the pros and cons of each? Shelley, you talking to me?
Yes. I mean, for now, I don't
Yeah.
think I'm quite ready yet to grasp the whole concept, but definitely long term with Christine will help me.
Yes, absolutely. I'll help you. Okay, so money and where to find it. I know a lot of people think that this is the hardest part of real estate investing, and it's actually the easiest part, because if you're able to find a good deal, you will absolutely be able to find money. Either, like, if you can either get money from a regular bank with a traditional loan. You can get what they call a hard money loan, which basically means that it's going to be for a shorter term and a higher interest rate. But then once you get it to a certain point, you'll be able to probably refinance into a regular loan. Or you can take on investors, either allow them to lend you money, or you can allow them to come in as partners. And, obviously half a loaf is better than none. If you find a great deal and you're willing to take in a partner to share that with you, hey, you weren't going to be able to do it, so it's okay, right? And maybe the next one you can do by yourself if that's what you want. But you might find that person who's investing with you has some skills and things that you can learn about. So I would encourage you not to worry too much about the money and focus on just figuring out what kind of real estate investing works for you and finding that opportunity. So we started talking a little bit about market cycles and timing. And actually in my book, I wrote a book called Empower Your Inner Millionaire, a woman's guide to financial freedom through real estate investing. And it talks a lot about market cycles and like how to analyze where we are and the cues that you can use to figure that out. But let's just do sort of a economics 101 version. Like, basically real estate market cycles have to do with, just like every other cycle, supply and demand. So anybody, any state, any area where no matter where you live right now, do you see a lot of building going on? Yep. See, I was looking out the window of my hotel the other day in Miami, and there were so many cranes that I will go someplace that I haven't been for a couple of weeks, and I'll be like, oh my God, where did that building come from? Right? There's a ton of building going on. Yeah. That's supply. We're getting a lot of supply, because supply for these big buildings, it's many years between the time they decide they want to build something and the time that they're actually able to build it. So all those things are starting to now come to fruition. A lot of supply. So now what's going to happen? Eventually, that demand is going to be satisfied, and we're going to reach a point, and I think it's very, very close, where there's just too much supply, and we'll see what we saw about 13 years ago, which was empty buildings, condo associations going bankrupt, things that are selling for just a fraction of what they should be selling for. I believe that that's where we are now, just based on what I'm seeing. Real estate in the Boston area tends to be on a 13-year cycle. You can, they say 10 years, and that's close enough for the most part. So if you look, 2018, we're at the bottom. 2008, we're at the bottom. And then 13 years later, we should probably be back at the bottom. So
I have a question regarding supply and demand. I'm just thinking about, oh, we are all chatting, right?
Yep.
So for building a huge building, okay, 20 floors, let's say,
Yeah.
they need a lot of years to plan that, you know, architects, etc. Okay,
Lots of approvals.
lots of approvals, blah blah blah. But
Yep.
then what I'm thinking is the cycle of the supply is way longer than the demand, because the demand in a crisis that we're having right now can be, I mean, I'm sure the many people that they were thinking about to invest on buying, they said, oops, I'm gonna wait, or I'm gonna buy less. And then that's where it becomes an over supply that you're mentioning right now. There's
Yeah.
too much supply and it's not covering the demand.
Right.
And
Well, and also, you know, right, if you're going to build a building, are you going to are you going to build a building where that's going to be a whole bunch of affordable housing, or are you going to build a luxury building? So what they're building, not necessarily, right?
Exactly.
They've got to make money. And that's actually why there is ever a slowdown because when the prices go down, literally developers can't afford to build these new buildings. They just can't afford it. So they stop and they'll do some other little projects. Maybe they'll do rehabs, or maybe they'll do something commercial, whatever, because commercial and residential and industrial are on different cycles. So a lot of times a contractor will shift their attention from residential to something else. But yeah, they just literally can't afford to build a building and make a profit. And that's, again, why, and some of these, they might find that some of these things that they think are going to be luxury units, maybe they're going to turn into workforce housing, or maybe they're going to, because there just aren't that many people who need luxury, beautiful, expensive apartments and stuff. So, but yeah, they're basically racing against each other and against themselves to try to get these projects finished before the market, just the bottom pops out of the market.
We're actually down here in South Florida, we're experiencing that now.
Mm-hmm.
We have a lot of supply of residential multifamily properties, a tremendous amount. But, and it's funny, I every time I pass by them, especially out west on the western boundaries, I always think to myself, I'm like, is this smart? Because right now we're in a crisis and nobody can afford the rent. So, you know, you're building 1,000 units. Is it smart to do this at this time?
But Shelley, when do you think they pulled their first permit? You know what I mean?
Oh, well, see, that's the thing. The first permit was pulled probably about maybe 2 years ago.
Yeah.
A year, 2 years ago, which, you know, things were on the uptick. But I know that, like, in this particular case, they're looking at and it's probably speculating that the American Dream Mall project, which is, that's where all of the where I see a lot of residential rental or condo units are being built. They're anticipating a project that's coming maybe 3 to 5 years from now.
Yeah. One thing about developers, and this isn't true of all of them, but I've noticed that a lot of them they're either optimistic or they're egotistical, because they think that even though every single real estate cycle in this area has been 10 years, I think that this time it's going to be 12 years so I can get my stuff built before the crash. Or my building's going to be so much better than everybody else's. I mean, I guess you kind of have to have that attitude if you're ever going to do anything. But yeah, and it is part of it's the market cycle, how long the permitting process, by the time you buy the land and you get all the plans approved by the city, and then you start to get all your permits and blah blah blah. I mean, these things just take so long that they can't just abandon it now and wait 10 years for the market to come back. They just got to try to hurry up and finish it and hope for the best. And and it's also partly that optimism but developers lose money.
But that's where I am with this, because ultimately or eventually, you know, probably within, and this is where I have to learn to look at market timing and cycles, is that I ultimately want to be a developer.
Yep.
As opposed to a just an investor.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really looking at but for commercial properties only.
Yep.
You know, I'm really looking to niche in the commercial development process. And, you know, with my experience as being a building official, you know, leveraging that. And then, like I said, but if I right now, if I can learn, not if, but as I learn the real estate process, the real estate investing process, it's going to just reinforce and help me better be a better developer. So that's really why I want to start small with these, you know, the real estate investing principles, and then grow from there.
Smart, because by the time you're ready, it'll be time to start up again. Because, you know, again, so you've got two types of investors, just like two types of everything right now. You've got the ones who have already been through a crash and they're a little gun shy. So they don't want to start too soon when they think the market might be starting to recover. They don't want to start too soon. And then you've got new developers who have never been through a crash and they just don't get it. But a lot of times, if it's your first project, it takes longer, right? More stuff goes wrong. There are more things you didn't know. So in both cases, they're both late to the party. If you can start your permitting when you're at the bottom of the cycle, then you're perfect, because you've got your 3 or 4 years, 5 years in, and your stuff's coming on the market at the top or really close to the top, and you're golden. But that's analysis, and a lot of people that are in that field do not love analysis.
Well, that's why you hire an analyst.
Exactly, because it's not rocket science. It's just looking at trends. And obviously COVID is a little bit of an exception, but we've been predicting a crash or a slowdown in 2020, 2021 for the last 7 years. So it's not surprising me. I mean, it's different because of COVID. And I actually think in some ways COVID has delayed it because of the moratorium on evictions, because of the moratorium on foreclosures. Mm-hmm. I think that we're postponing the inevitable that was going to happen anyway because of the massive supply that we have. Mm-hmm. Okay, so just like any great quarterback, when I used to say just like Tom Brady, but obviously Tom Brady left the New England Patriots, so we don't talk about him anymore. He's dead to me. So just like a great quarterback, you are going to want to create a pro team. These are some of the people who you're going to want on your team, and you don't need to take them all on at the same time or anything, but you want to have people you can lean on, people you can leverage, and people who you know, like, and trust, right? If you wait until you're in the middle of a transaction to hire your attorney, you might end up with a loser, or someone you don't like, someone who doesn't share your communication style. For example, I had as a real estate agent, I work with the attorney who my buyer has or my seller has, and then the attorney who's on the other side. Well, the attorney on the other side was from the dark ages. The guy did not read email. His secretary would print off the email. He would write his answer on the email, on the piece of paper, and then she would come back and input it in. So you think there was an opportunity for some errors there? And the delays, oh my word. Yeah, so you want to make sure that if you're a texter, you want your attorney to be, and your tax accountant, you want to be able to, these people share your vision, they share your risk aversion, or they complement your risk aversion. So take your time and start interviewing these people before you need them. It doesn't have to be 10 years before you need them, but it does have to. I suggest not making these kind of decisions, in haste. Even like, I know people who walked into a property, they liked it, and they used the seller's agent to do all their work there. So they didn't have their own real estate agent representing them. And only at the end found out how different things could have been if they had somebody who was on their side fighting for them instead of basically working with the person who was representing the other side, the other side. So yeah, just, you know, like I said, take your time. And so what do you think? Have I convinced you that real estate investing might be for you? Anybody
Yeah.
still on the fence?
Absolutely.
Yay, my work here is done.
Eventually, yes, I will.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Thanks, Amanda. Amanda gave yes with an exclamation point. Yay. Okay, so what to do next? You want to set some goals. I'm all about goals, as some of you know. You want to know what you want real estate to do for you, how soon you want to get started investing. Put some benchmarks, some milestones in place so that you know that you're making progress on things. And just get it out there. I suggest you write down what you want, put it on a piece of paper, put it somewhere where you're going to see it at least twice a day, and keep saying to yourself, I'm the owner of a multifamily unit. I'm an owner of $1 million in real estate investment property. Whatever that goal is, just reinforce it into your mind every day, because it's going to open up your mind to possibilities that you might not see if you weren't focusing on it. And you want to define a budget. If you have a lot of, and what I don't think is on here, but what should be on here is whether, no matter how you're thinking that you're going to get your money, you want to work on your credit. The higher your credit score, the better chance you are going to have lower, you're going to pay less for your money that you borrow. You're going to be able to, like a hard money lender is not necessarily going to run your credit. They're probably not going to run your credit. They're more interested in the transaction, but it's important. Just trust me. And I'm actually writing a blog about repairing your credit and checking your credit and being intentional about your credit. So if you're interested in that, I'll send out a link.
Yes. Sorry, just really quick. I am interested in that because I feel like I just keep getting a lot of mixed information, and I feel like I'm in the middle of don't have any debt because it looks bad on your credit, but then have debt because if you show that you can pay it off, it looks good on your credit. So I'm just like, what do I do?
Yeah.
What do I do? So.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true.
Chris.
Sorry, Shelley.
I'm interested as well.
Okay, great. Yeah, we're eventually going to get to where there is a Facebook group for people who have graduated from this, if you want to call this little webinar, people who have attended the webinar. So if you join the Facebook group, I'm going to put the post in there, and then I'll also just circulate it to everybody as an email. Okay. You are going to want to get pre-qualified. If you haven't ever worked with a lender before, it's worth at least asking them, because if you start the process now, they can give you a lot of times some tips, and you can start to see what kind of programs might be available for you. If you don't already own real estate for your own, like if you don't own your primary residence, I would suggest that the first property you buy be one that you can also live in. You don't have to. I know people who live in an apartment and own residential real estate that they rent to other people. But you got to make sure those numbers work. So yeah, if the great thing is, if you're going to live there, you can put as little as 3% down. You can have a lower interest rate. You can have all kinds of great programs. You can take a first-time home buyer program. There are in certain cities, certain areas, you can get grant money that will pay your down payment. I mean, there's so many programs for first-time home buyers. And basically, a first-time home buyer is someone who has not had a piece of property in their name in the last, most programs define it as a person who has not had a deed in their name in the last 3 to 5 years, depending on the program. So it doesn't mean you never owned real estate before. It just means that you haven't owned it recently. We have half-day workshops. So you could sign up for a half-day workshop in a particular area. We have everything from goal setting. Basically, all the different slides have a half-day seminar. So you could take one on BRRRRs, on Airbnb, on goal setting, on credit repair, on whatever. I mean, I'll basically create a workshop in anything that you're interested in. So that's an option. Join the Facebook group, which I will send you all an invitation to that. And you want to start thinking about building your pro team, and just do it. But I want to add something to this, because I'm also, in addition to the Facebook group, I've been thinking of creating a mastermind group where, for example, we would all meet together and brainstorm about, like the process, just as to support each other, and also to go somewhat through the process together, so that we're all maybe working on our credit the first month or whatever, and things like that. So that if that's something of interest, then you can either reach out to me privately, or you can just put your name or your email or whatever into the chat. Questions? Okay, Amanda has a question. Shelley, let me just answer her real quick. Do I think housing prices are going to go up or down? I think that you're going to see them going down over the next year. Certainly, I think you're going to see them going down, because as I was saying chatting with Lisa, I think they're going to go down. So, what's Thurman? Oh, thumbs up. Good. Who's Thurman? Okay, cool. Autocorrect, don't you love it? Oh my God. The stuff I've sent to people. Oh my word. Yeah. So, I think the prices are going to go down, and there are already, almost everywhere, I think there are already some properties that are out there that are in foreclosure. The problem in my area is that a lot of them are occupied, and it is no party trying to get somebody out of a house that they're living in, even if they're a tenant. But if they're a homeowner, then it's even worse.
Chris, I have a question.
Yeah.
Is there a distinction between commercial and residential property? Like you said that you have to wait 3 to 5 years.
Well,
Like,
there's no such thing as a first-time home buyer for commercial property.
Okay, so you can get a first-time home buyer loan if you wait a certain amount of time, even though you have commercial property.
Yeah, normally. There are some certain government programs that they don't want you to have ever had a loan in your, a deed in your name, but those are few and far between. Those are usually special city projects or something like that, where they don't want you to have ever had a deed in your name. But there again, they're only going to search in that state, right? They're not doing a countrywide search either. So,
so it's not 2 years; it's three to 5. I thought
it depends. It depends on the bank. Each bank is different. Some it's only 3, some it's as much as 5. I've never seen more than 5. If it's going to be more than 5, then it's that you can never have had one in your name.
Okay.
Thanks, Carol. Thank you. Okay, so Amanda lives in Canada. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. You may not, it's the same thing in Boston. There are still bidding wars going on in certain price points, in certain price ranges. And that's why, like when John was talking earlier about his investment property and some of my investment properties as well, they're out a little bit outside the city. So, and you'll probably find this, Amanda, as well, that maybe there's like a vacation area where you could get something that you could rent out. Maybe there's like in Boston, lots of bidding wars, lots of stuff. In any area that has a really great school system right now, in the Boston area, there's a lot of bidding wars and things are crazy. But if you go maybe like an hour outside the city, you can find some property where there are no bidding wars, where maybe the market is, or not the market, but the economic conditions are a little bit more depressed. Thanks, Shelley. The reason that we chose the area, and I have Airbnbs there. Oh, I just got a note that my internet connection's unstable, so hopefully I won't lose anybody. It's a 3-season area, great for Airbnb, but because it's great for Airbnb, it's really great for regular rentals, because people who own property there, they would rather do Airbnb so they can use the property themselves sometimes. And so people who live there who want to rent have very few choices. So you can get real high quality tenants for property that are a fraction of what you would pay in other areas. And the numbers really work. So you don't necessarily have to buy where you live exactly. You just want to buy in a place where it's not too terribly far, or you have a property manager. And so you might want to think about, Amanda, you might want to think about the turnkey rental and buying something in Tennessee or Delaware or, you know, Maryland, someplace where the prices are lower and somebody just manages it for you. You don't have to do anything. Or you might want to, like I said, you might find a place that's an hour or a couple hours out from you where you can find something that's a great deal. And that's part of the whole analysis work that we do in our half-day workshops, or if I do like one-on-one consulting with you, is we do a lot of analysis to see where the right area is for your specific wants and needs and all that good stuff.
I have a question. So this may be a question for like a private coaching type of setting, but there's this place that I'm looking at, and it's really close to the stadium, the Hard Rock Stadium. Mm-hmm. They are building a lot around there, and it looks like they're about to build some apartments literally in walking distance of the stadium. So me and my boyfriend, we've really been looking at possibly getting one of those and using it as an Airbnb or something like that. That's why I've really been researching that a lot recently. So would you suggest maybe starting off with something like that? Or should we look more for maybe like a different location and just doing like a regular rental to start out for beginner investors?
Yeah, if you know, this Airbnb thing can be a great way to get started. You can, the only thing is, unless it's a single family residence, you have to make sure that the building is going to allow short-term rentals, because a lot of them don't. And
let me add to that, as the former development services director for Miami Gardens, check the city, because when I was there, Airbnbs were not looked upon favorably. So, and because in Miami Gardens, you actually, even if you wanted to rent out, if you have a condo, you want to rent it out, you have to get a landlord permit. And if I'm not mistaken, they are requiring a landlord permit if you have an Airbnb. So check with the city, make sure that the restrictions haven't, the ordinance hasn't changed, because that was and actually you have to, and when I was there, I had a rental registry where all rental properties had to register with a company. So
Boston's the same way.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
So
it's not unusual.
Check with Miami Gardens, and if we get together offline, I can even help you with that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions?
Yeah, Chris. Like I said, I'm really interested in definitely doing the mastermind, because one of the things that I would like to gain a little bit more knowledge on is the analytical part of, I see this property, I like this property, I want to purchase it as a rental, but how much can I get for it? How much do I need to put in it? You know, when do I make a profit versus breaking even? That type of analysis. I'm really interested in learning how to do that, because as you look for properties and you're looking at price points, you know, at what point, what all factors do you take into consideration to know if this is a good property or not, where you're going to at least make some money?
Yeah, exactly. And actually, I think I have another slide that, oh, this is my market timing slide. This is how this is our forecast. So we've tracked from 1985, we've tracked all the things. I don't know, it's kind of a confusing slide, but if you look at, so 2005 was the top of the market, then it went down. See, if you just look at that second circle, 2005 was the top, then it came back around. 2008 was the bottom. It's like 2008 to 2011, started to go back up again. And then it was 2014 was when it was at its second peak, right? When it came back around. And if you bought in 2005, you wouldn't be able to sell until 2014 because your house would probably not be worth that much again until 2014. So so we're thinking that if you buy in 2022, that's a fantastic time to buy. And then when you sell it in 2026, it's going to be worth probably at least 30% more than you paid for it. Okay. So, but these are, these are some of the ways that you can do analysis. And a lot of this, some of it, there's comparing two properties, right? So here's two that I like, which one should I buy? You can do this kind of analysis, but also, as you said, like, should I buy this? What's my return rate? What should I factor in for stuff? So there are lots of different ways to do it, but I don't want to go too deep into the woods, as far as into the weeds, I guess you should say, to
Yeah, no, I mean, something offline and then mastermind or whatever.
Yep, absolutely. The vision I have for the mastermind is that we'd all be in at the same time. You know, it would be hard if people were coming and going. So, and we basically walk through the entire process from setting goals to actually buying a piece of property.
Right. Absolutely.
Okay. Thank you very much for being here. I really enjoyed all your questions. Were fantastic.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Grace. It was so great. I love it. I learned so much today.
Awesome. I'm so glad. This is, I told you, this is my goal. This is what I live for. This is my, yes. Yeah.
Well, I'm looking forward to the next steps.
Thank you. Me too. I'm looking forward to taking you on that journey, Shelley.
You know, I like traveling.
Thank you. All right, great. So I am going to put the recording on YouTube, so you'll be able to have access to that. And I'll just send everybody information about the mastermind and the link to the thing. And then, if there's anything else that you need, just let me know by email or call me or whatever.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.